Hi, I'm going to be giving you some background on this section on humane technology, or about developing the virtue of technosocial sensitivity. If you've done the Harris reading, he discusses different virtues that an engineer might have. One of them is technosocial sensitivity. That is the critical awareness of the way technology affects society and the way social forces in turn affect the evolution of technology. So someone who has this virtue cares about how, when they deploy this technology, how it will actually impact people, institutions, groups. So someone who has this virtue is going to ask questions like these. How is this technology that I'm creating going to impact people as individuals? How is it going to impact social structures, families, cultural traditions, and institutions? Institutions like democracy, elections, etc. And then, will it have a good or bad impact, or will it be, probably it would be mixed? And how would you weigh these things? The bad against the good. So, and then there are more fundamental questions. These are philosophical questions, questions about value, they're ethical questions. So what actually counts as a good or bad effect? Oop, I put better off. What is a just and happy society? And this is a question in political philosophy. When are human beings most happy? How do we promote human well-being with our products and inventions? So as a baseline, what I like to do is think about our evolutionary history as human beings and think about how our species have lived for the vast majority of our history. That is most likely something that's close to that or near to that is going to promote human well-being the most. Okay, of course with some adjustments. Time spent outside, having a tight-knit social group, being with your family, not working hours and hours. Yeah. So how does technology impact us? So someone who has the virtue of technosocial sensitivity is going to ask, how is this impacting us? So I have this great quote from Langdon Weiner. He says, technology enters into and becomes part of the fabric of human life and activity. So he says that many technologies, it's this great new invention, but then it's not just like this tool that sits there. It actually changes society, it changes individuals, it changes how we perceive things and how we interact. Blind faith characterizes society's orientation toward the technical. We release powerful changes in the world with a cavalier disregard for consequences. So we release these powerful changes in the world without much thought about how it will be used, how it's going to affect society. So we release powerful changes in the world with a cavalier disregard for consequences, he says. We begin to use the new apparatuses with no attention to the way in which these tools unexpectedly rearrange our lives. And they do this little by little, changing the way we live as individuals, as human beings, as a society, the way our jobs are arranged, our schedules. About that later. Okay, so here's some examples of technologies that changed things. Okay, so even very basic technologies are capable of entering into the fabric of human culture, humanity, changing social structures, institutions, and lives. So something very simple, the printing press, according to the interwebs, was invented in 1436. So as I was looking for this photo of the printing press, I ran across an article that said 7 ways the printing press changed world history. But the way that I'm thinking of is that the printing press actually caused the Protestant Revolution and the break with Protestant Christianity from Catholicism and all the wars that followed. All of a sudden, in the 1400s, we had the capacity to print the Bible. Why is that important? Well, if you all of a sudden you print the Bible, people can have it in their hands and read it. And then they start asking questions like, well, why do we need these priests to tell us about God? We now have a Bible in our house. So as the printing press distributed these books, it sort of undermined the authority of the Catholic Church, causing splits, and then all the wars that followed. So I'm not saying the printing press was a bad thing, but it definitely had huge effects on individual people, social structures, and institutions. So then the light bulb apparently became available in 1879, or was first invented in a way that could be marketed. How did the light bulb change things? Well, it allowed people to stay up later. It extended the workday, either at home or in the workplace. So right now it is almost 8:30 at night. It is dark out. I'm working on a laptop with a light, right? What I'm not doing is relaxing and sleeping or taking a walk or eating. I'm still working. So that extends the workday, where you can stay up later and work longer. It puts the onus of setting boundaries on the individual rather than... So as a result, it allowed people to spend more time indoors, work longer. We're sleep deprived now. Most people are not getting enough sleep. And there's data that says that sleep deprivation does all sorts of bad things, but it decreases your lifespan. It allowed people to spend more time indoors, so you sort of lose touch with the natural world and with the rhythms of nature that sort of guide your circadian rhythms and your biology. And then we get less sleep and work more hours than most people did in human history. So human beings 60,000 years ago worked 4 hours a day and slept, almost all the hours that it was dark. And then television, I heard this great quote. A person said, "My father said when we first got a TV in our house, this is going to change how people listen to each other." So it was the person that was being interviewed was remembering what his father said when they first got a TV in the 50s. And the TV came on. He said, this is going to change everything. It's going to change how people interact. So this person's father noticed how people were, you could get used to talking over the conversations of other people, the people on the television set. And then he predicted that people were going to get used to tuning out conversations and would get used to being talked over. So talking over people, not listening carefully, was going to be more common, is what the person said. And then here's a quote from Weiner. So Weiner, this is the end of this quote. He says, we release these powerful changes in society with no attention to the way in which these tools change our lives. He says, we, the people that make these new technologies, and they endlessly proliferate technological forms of life that isolate people from each other and cripple rather than enrich the human potential. That they stand idly by while vast technical systems reverse the reasonable relationship between means and ends. Wow, so there's a lot packed into that one sentence. But so what does he mean to reverse the reasonable relationship between means and ends? So humans are using the tool as a means for their own ends. So you pick up a hammer, you use it to do what you want to do with it. But Weiner says, here's the problem. These technologies are going to enter into our lives, and they're going to make us the tool. They're going to use us for whatever ends. So what he means by this is that essentially that people are turned into cogs in the machine. And you see this in a lot of work. I think this is an Amazon factory. So this is contemporary stuff where the person is performing this sort of just, they're being used as a tool, as a thing to move this box over here and this box over here. This person here is using this drill, drill these holes, put this in, move it to the next person. End up being used as part of the machinery. They enter these new technologies, these factories, enter into our lives and just change the way that we live. In a dehumanizing way, Weiner talks about taking away creativity, individuality, and connection.